You think that's funny? You ain't seen nothing yet. All right, so we're going to be talking about speed because the world is moving fast, isn't it? And we need strategies to be able to cope. We're then going to be able to talk about smart because it's not about doing more, is it? It's not about working harder. How many of you could work harder? You're sitting next to your boss, don't put your hand up. Yeah? We're all working hard. Yeah? We'd all love to spend more time with our kids. All right? But we need to work smarter, and we need tools and strategies to do that, so I'm going to throw a few of those at you as well. And then, finally, we need skills. Yeah? What we learned at school is useless today already. Yeah? You know that about a third of every technical degree taught today is completely useless by the time the students leave university? Yeah? It's been 22 years since I left university. I can tell you I remember nothing. So we need some new skills that are going to help us stay ahead because you're the leaders. You are the people who are going to lead this GIC to GCC revolution. You are the people who are going to lead others and inspire others and create futures for others, for communities, and for the world. And you need the skills to do that. So very modestly, we're going to have a look at some of those pieces. Let's start with this one, speed. Here is my favorite quote of the moment, and I'll give it to you right away. I think it may even be in the blurb for the session. The world has never moved this fast, and it will never move this slowly again. Yeah? I want you to take that, write it down, and stick it above your desk. And then next time you have a big team meeting, I want you to stick it on the flip chart or on the wall so everybody can see it. Because what that really is telling us is that the way that we think about the world today has to change. Yeah? Don't believe me? Have a look at this. Can we get some sound? No, we just got pictures. Enjoy the pictures, people. Aha, we have sound. You know who you are. Now watch this next one. That computer was made in India, of course, yep.
Right here, right now, right here, right now.
And you know who you are.
Right now, right here, right now, right here, right now, right here, right now.
So one of the joys of doing my job is that I get to stand here and watch you watching that. And typically, when I speak to audiences, and you guys are no exception at all, you have people watching that film and nodding along going, yeah, this is exciting, more Angry Birds. And then you have part of the audience that sits there going, oh no, make it stop. Now, you know which part of the audience you happen to fit into? Yeah? The truth is it's not going to stop, though, is it? Yeah? Which was the statistic from that film that jumped out at you the most? Was it the one about the human knowledge every 12 hours? Yeah? Can you even begin to wrap your head around what that means? I mean, you're a very, very, very big bunch of very smart people, much smarter than me. Yeah? You know how to do things with technology and stuff that makes my brain melt. But I cannot even begin to comprehend what that means. Human knowledge doubling every 12 hours. That's twice a day. I can barely read the newspaper once a day. Yeah? And that's on a good day. How are we possibly going to cope? How can we expect us to lead businesses, to lead others, when we've got no way of coping? Well, we do actually have a way of coping. The way of coping is to recognize that all of the constructs that we have built, all of these societal constructs that we have built in the last 150 or 200 years, the notion of a company where you have a boss and a board and they tell other people what to do, and then they tell other people what to do, and they tell other people what to do, and eventually somebody does something. You know who you are. That doesn't work anymore. How can it possibly work in a world where human knowledge is doubling every 12 hours? By the time the guy who actually does the work has told the person above him that something actually needs to change, and they've told the person above them, and they've had 4 committee meetings, and it's gone to the board who've requested a change to the PowerPoint, and then it's gone back, and it's gone back. The world has already changed 50,000 times. That construct doesn't work anymore, does it? Vertical, goodbye. Horizontal, hello. Well, what does that mean? It means that we need to stop being the boss of somebody else. We need to start being the partner of everybody. And we then need to say to ourselves, well, what is it that's going to bring us together? How do we create connections? How are we going to bring these people together to do these things that we need to do if we don't have structures, if we don't have... What is it? Is it amorphous? Is this a new world of anarchy that John is trying to describe to us? Well, no, I actually think that it allows us to move away from a construct that was designed not by you and me. Let's face it, the world we live in today, be that the world of work or the world of education, was designed in the late 18th century by rich people to get people like you and me enough education to be able to work the machines so that we could generate the money from the people who owned the machines. That's how the world was built. Education systems, and I'm a Brit, and you in India have, unfortunately, carried a certain number of things from the Brits over, including a lot of our education system. Now, please reinvent that. Yeah, you reinvent it and then tell the Brits how to do it. I saw you were doing that with other things. That's fabulous. We were educated so that we had a minimal level of information and a minimal level of capacity over a broad range of subjects so that we could be moved from operating one type of machine to operating another type of machine. And that is what we have done as a species for the last 150 years. It's why we have this thing called jobs. Jobs are an industrial construct. Now, let's get rid of all that, because we don't need the people to work the machines anymore, because as you guys are proving, the machines are pretty good at working themselves. The machines are good at making money without the people running them. So, what do the people get to do? Well, we get to focus on the things that really drive us. And the key here, ladies and gents, is how do we cope in a world where human knowledge is doubling every 12 hours? We cope by coming back to what makes us human. We cope by coming back to what makes us profoundly human, not the constructs of societies that we live in that are really about making rich people richer and making sure that the rest of us stay quiet. Yeah? But in order to be able to embrace this new world that we're coming into, which I am really excited about the new world. I think it's a new world of freedom, and I think it's a new world of great democracy, and I think it's a new world of empowerment in ways that we couldn't have imagined 15 years ago. I'm really excited for my kids' generation because they get to grow up in a world where they don't have to be a person who does a job. They get to create value. rather than do a job. And that is an inspiring thought for me. But it does mean that we have to change our way of looking at things. Now, any marketers in the room? Maybe not. No, I've got the wrong audience, haven't I? Anyway, you familiar with the 3 Ps? 3 principles of, yeah, price, product, placement, yeah? Anyone who worked for Procter & Gamble will have had that drummed into their brains. The 3 Ps were a driving part of business for the last 50 years. And the first thing we need to do is we need to reinvent them. Yeah? We need to reinvent them. Purpose is the first one. That's what the P becomes. People-focused is the second one. And deeply profitable is the third one. Because that's what we want to be. We want to be people-focused, we want to be purpose-driven, and we want to be profitable. Are those 3 things resonating with you? Do you want to be those 3 things? Yeah, at least a couple of you do. The rest of you are like, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. So why do we need to be people-focused? Why do we need to be purpose-driven? And why do we need to be profitable? Well, profitable is easy. We'll get to that in a minute. But why do we need to be people-focused? Well, here, ladies and gents, is the reason we need to be people-focused. Does anybody have a millennial child? Or does anybody work in a company where you have to employ millennials? In fact, is anybody in this room a millennial? No, if there was a millennial in this room, they'd already have gone for coffee. 4 phones all going at the same time. Buy, sell, Silicon Valley, hello. Millennials are a weird bunch, but the problem is there's 2.5 billion of them on the planet, which means that we kind of have to listen to them. I say this as a Gen Xer. Thank you. Why are millennials important? Well, millennials have grown up in a world with technology, which I certainly didn't. And they've also grown up in a world where there's a pretty big awareness of the fact that the world has some very significant problems. They've grown up and are growing up and are beginning to take leadership positions in organizations around the world. And for them, the duality of making money and doing good is no longer something that is about opposites. It's about 2 halves of the same whole. For the 2.5 billion millennials who are going to lead this planet starting very shortly, doing good and making money is the same thing. Yeah? And how does that actually translate? Well, you know, doing good and making money. You know this good old thing in the book. We used to have the non-profit world and the for-profit world, didn't we? Remember those days? Yeah? Now we have the for-change world or the irrelevant world. Right, question is, are you a for-change company or are you an irrelevant company? Hands up if you're irrelevant. No, don't do that. You might be sitting next to your boss. The point being, ladies and gents, we are all now having to embrace purpose as part of the core entity of who we are as businesses. And I say this to you because you have a lot of opportunity ahead of you, but you also have a lot of people around the world looking at you, with great expectations of what you're going to do, but also with a little bit of a raised eyebrow because there's a lot of jobs disappearing from various countries around the world and coming here. Yeah? Purpose is now key. There's also another piece to this in terms of purpose. When I travel the world, and I'm very lucky to do this, I typically hear industries say to me that they have 2 challenges. Their biggest challenges are people and innovation. And interesting, just in the few hours that I've spent here today, people and innovation are 2 things that I've heard most talk about in the corridor. Yeah? Different types of people that we need, challenges in getting and keeping people, challenges in being innovative. Is this resonating with you? Yes. You don't want to say it too loudly. No, our innovation is fine. We have all the people we need. It's all good. It's all good. Yes, it's good. Good. All right. You know where the innovation's happening right now? It's happening in social tech. It's happening where a bunch of young people are deciding that they want to invent technologies that are going to support the Sustainable Development Goals. These are the SDGs from the UN. We're all familiar with them. We know what the SDGs are, the 17 big goals that the planet needs to achieve. I was in Israel working with innovators, and as we know, Israel, very innovative country. You go and speak to a 25-year-old innovator and entrepreneur in Israel, and they will tell you that they are not interested in innovating for anything but these things. They want to innovate for good. And out of this is coming some incredible new businesses, some incredible new business ideas. They're all driven by young people who are desperate to be aligning their personal purpose with the purpose of the thing that they're working for. Innovators who want to follow their dreams, and their dreams are of a better world. And there's, as I said, there's a bunch of new companies coming out of this space. I'm just going to pick up one. I also run an incubator. We incubate, in this case, we're incubating an ag tech company, which is a very interesting company because it has found a way of, it's found an insect. And if you feed certain product, you feed food waste to this insect, then the insect you can feed to animals, and it makes the animals healthier. It's really cool. In fact, you know what it is? It's 360-degree circular sustainable models. You take from the grocery stores up here, right at the top, the food that they don't sell, and in North America, about 40% of the food in grocery stores is not sold. I'm sure the figure here in India is pretty high as well. Yeah? You take that food that's not been sold, you feed it to these insects. These insects then turn into a feed for animals that make the animals healthier because they support the gut microbiome. That's a cool word. Yeah? And the animals get healthier, and then you put those animals back on the stores of the same shelves of the same grocery stores. So you take the unsold food from the grocery store, and in return, you get healthier animals put back on the shelves. It's a brilliant model. This is the sort of thing that 25-year-olds are jumping up and down and wanting to be a part of. Now think about this. As you go from GIC to GCC, how much of you are thinking in this circular fashion? How are you thinking? How are you thinking circular? How are you thinking 360 sustainable? How are you bringing this kind of purpose-driven thinking to your businesses? This is what I mean by purpose-driven. And I'm going to give you another example as well. Another example to show you that it's not just the small startups that are doing this innovation, but it's big, big, big corporations. I'm going to pick on Procter & Gamble. And the reason I'm going to pick on Procter & Gamble is because they've done something very cool, and I'm going to show you it through this film.
P&G, proud sponsor of Moms.
So again, one of the joys of my job is I get to watch you watching that. No, I'm not. No, no, I'm not. No, I know who you are. Anyway. Cool, hey? So here's a company. Most of its products are bought by women, and it decides that it's going to stand for the fact that women's role is not sufficiently championed in society. Pretty smart. How do you think it made their consumers feel? Pretty good. How do you think it affected their sales? Very good. They've been doing this campaign since 2012. They do a new one every year for the Olympics. This was my favorite. It remains my favorite film. It's from 2012. The London Olympics. They sold $500 million worth of product. extra as a result of this campaign. But you know, that wasn't the most important thing. Because remember, this is not about funky advertising. This is about being a purpose-driven company. And a purpose-driven company walks the talk. You know how P&G walks the talk? So P&G was a big sponsor for the London Olympics. And they took the decision at the corporate level that they would give up almost all of their corporate tickets and give them to the mothers of athletes from developing countries to come and watch their sons and daughters compete. Because being purpose-driven isn't just about finding a nice tagline. Being purpose-driven is actually saying, this is really who we are, and we're going to walk the talk. We are going to be purpose-driven. We're going to be people-focused. And if you do that right, ladies and gents, you will be profitable. Now, the slide behind me shows you just how profitable. So purpose-led companies outperformed the S&P 500 by 10x. By 10x between 1996 and 2011. Purpose-driven companies, you're 3 times more likely to stay with a purpose-driven company. And here's another one. 42% of companies that are not driven by purpose lost revenue in the last 3 years. 85% of companies that are driven by purpose increased their growth in the last 3 years. Now, I've been talking about the need for companies to be purpose-driven for a very long time. My background is in social innovation. I started off in philanthropy. I started off in the social sector. I have been trying to get people to get involved in deploying capital to change the world for nearly 15 years. And I can tell you that in the last 2 to 3 years, the spark is catching. People are starting to wake up to this. This is your new competitive advantage, ladies and gents. This isn't a nice to have. This is your sustainability platform, but more than anything else, it's your competitive advantage. Yeah? Instead of talking about all of the KPIs, instead of talking about customer satisfaction, talk about to your clients how you're going to help them change the world. Talk to your clients. Some of these guys. All of these companies that I'm seeing up here have very strong purpose-driven, sustainable goals. Talk to them about how you will help them achieve that. Talk to them about how together you guys will change lives. Not just how you'll increase data, whatever it is. I don't even know your language. But you know, you're getting the point here? Change the conversation. That's how we survive in the world of tomorrow. We survive by talking to people's hearts first. There's a triangle I want you to follow. Heart, mind, wallet. Yeah, I learned this back in the days of philanthropy and fundraising. Yeah, in order to get a donor to give you money, you have to speak to their heart. Then you have to speak to their head, and then you could have the conversation with the wallet. Or the wife. It's now the same for you guys. Speak to people's hearts. Talk about how you're going to help them change things. Stand for something in the world and let them stand with you. Then tell them how you've got all the KPIs and you can reassure them and you can deliver. Then have the conversation with the wallet, and that will look like a very different conversation because you'll no longer be a commodity player. Is this making sense? These are the tools to survive in the new world order, but they require a particular skill that we're not very good at. Yeah? So I want you to count with me. How many of these do we have? How many of this do we have? So why do we use this many, many, many more times than we use these? Yeah? The skill we need to listen, the skill we need is this. We need to listen better. A lot of the work that I do is working with companies, helping them become more purpose-driven, helping them do this, helping them get ready for the world of tomorrow, helping them build competitive advantage by changing the conversation. And the hardest part of this journey, but the most important piece, is not working out what you stand for by getting everybody of the C-suite together in a room and getting a flip chart out and putting post-its on the wall and having a lovely time. You do that. Yes, we do. We spend time with the boards, and we spend time with the leadership of the companies to work out what they stand for and to work out how they should talk about themselves. But you know what we then do? We go right down to the coalface. This is what you need to do too. You go right down to the coalface, and we find teams of 10 or 15 people who are really on the front line of the business. And we sit down one-on-one with each of the people in those teams, and we help them articulate what they stand for as individuals, one by one by one. And then we map those like Venn diagrams that intersect. And we find the area of commonality, the thing that everybody in that team can stand for. It might not be the thing that drives them 120%, but they can stand for that. That speaks to them. It speaks to their heart. It speaks to the fire that burns in their belly. You know what I mean by that? You have one of these. You have a fire that burns in your belly. You have a change that you want to see happen in the world. You all do. Yeah? Groups of 5 or 10 people, bring them together, map out what their change is, then do it with another team, then do it with another team, and bring them together. 3 teams come together, and suddenly you start to find that you've got something that everybody's aligned on what they stand for. A very emotional conversation, a very powerful conversation, something that's really exciting to people. And then you take what the frontline guys are saying, and you take what the company CEO and leadership says that they stand for, and you bring the two together. And by doing that, you create purpose and alignment between what the individual stands for and what the company stands for. And by doing that, ladies and gents, that is the skill that unlocks the power of people. That is the thing that unlocks your horizontal organization. And as you'll see, when you do that, some quite remarkable things can happen. And I'm going to show you my last video today is from a company called Patagonia. Who's heard of Patagonia? Yeah? They're a clothing company. They're a clothing company with a difference because they've already done this work. They know what they stand for, and everybody in that organization knows what they stand for too. And this is the spark that unleashes the passion and unleashes the innovation that you so very, very much need in your organizations. Have a look at this.
Patagonia is a great example of a strong brand that has basically said, we're going to go as transparent as we can.
Anybody working in the environmental field knows if you're not talking about what's wrong, you're not telling the whole story.
You don't have to be worried about telling everybody of the bad things you're doing, as long as you say that we're working on these things. But if you try to be dishonest, try to hide it, it's going to come back and bite you in the
They did something a couple years ago called the Footprint Chronicles, where they put up on their website the story of the products that they were selling.
It was one of the first really progressive approaches to transparency. Through their choosing, they came to people and they said, we're going to show you how our products are made. When I looked at it, it's not good news.
This is Patagonia, like the environmental outdoor brand, talking about, we put toxic chemicals on your jacket you're wearing.
And it's so common to say, oh, what's the challenge? What's the opportunity? It's like, no, it's bad. It's just bad. So we just laid it out there of here's what's good, here's what's bad, and then what we think. And it was a scary notion. If we put it out there, it turns a lot of confrontations into a conversation.
The consumer has proven that they don't expect perfection. Time and time again, when companies have used transparency right, the consumer hasn't looked at the truth and said, oh, it's not perfect enough, I'm moving on. They're very realistic about it.
I don't think advertising is enjoying the same luxury it once had. We're all skeptics today. We've all heard it far too many times. Clear is the new clever. And you need to be clear in your messages. Clever doesn't work anymore.
Clever doesn't work anymore, ladies and gents, and that's a wonderful example. That initiative didn't come from the top down. That initiative came from the bottom up. That came from people knowing what it was that they stood for. They stand for the environment, but yet they make clothes. There's a dissonance here. Let's explore it, and let's be honest about it, and let's have the conversation with people. Wow. So, ladies and gents, this is your new frontier. The world is moving faster than it has ever moved before, and it is only going to get faster. In order to be able to cope in this new world order, we need to focus right back on the essentials. We need to go back to school, but go back to the school of life and what makes us truly human and what makes us truly belong in community. We need to go back to the things that drive us. We need to take a stand for the things that we really care about in the world, and we need to create a space for others to stand with us. And when we do that, and when we listen, and when we really engage others and give them the opportunity to know what they stand for and be the people who empower them, then that is how we can begin to craft the future that we all want to create. So, ladies and gents, NASSCOM is a very interesting platform because there are very few places where you can get together in a community and make a commitment to each other. And so I would like to invite you right here and right now to do that very thing. I would like you to stand up right now if you are prepared to take a stand with me in saying that we want to create a GCC movement here in India that is going to empower not just us, but all of the people that we work with. That is going to empower not just us, but all of the children that will follow us and all of the generations that will follow us. I want to see on your feet right now if you will take a stand with me, ladies and gentlemen, and say that this together is our opportunity. Now look around you, look around, look to the person next to you, shake some hands, because this is your moment to make a commitment. And NASSCOM will be following up with you. There you go. Well done for taking a stand. Well done for taking a stand. Well done to you too. All right. This is your team, ladies and gents. Give yourselves a round of applause and have a great rest of the conference. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, John.